Welcome to the training on our Meet Well Guide. This Meet Well Guide was created by the Chatham-Kent Public Health Unit. My name is Michelle Bogart and I'm a health educator with Chatham-Kent Public Health. Also with us today is Chris Sherman, health educator, and his focus is physical activity, and Lindsay Davidson, registered dietitian, and her focus is nutrition. Lindsay, would you like to start?
All right, welcome everybody. So just to get started, a little bit of background. For most workplaces, the main reason that most will want to promote a healthy lifestyle in the workplace is for the potential cost savings. Employees spend a great deal of their time in the workplace. In addition, employees eat at least one meal during the workday and often access food from their workplace. It's important to consider the type of food and beverages offered in the workplaces, as well as other factors that come into play to ensure that employees have the best opportunity to promote health. We know that in Chatham-Kent, 1 out of every 2 people over the age of 18 is considered overweight or obese. We know that adults spend 60% of their waking day at work, and we know from research that promoting healthy eating and reducing sedentary behavior can prevent various workplace-related costs, and employees spend about 60% of their waking hours in the workplace. So a little bit of overview about the Meet Well Guide. When you think of the word meeting, what comes to mind? For most people, it's sitting in a room, being inactive, often eating unhealthy food, and hoping the meeting is worth the time that you're spending there. This is a guide that employers can use to improve employees' health and allow participants to be more focused and engaged. By making health the easy choice at work, employers and participants are supported in their healthy living goals. This resource was created for anyone who wants to host meetings, conferences, or events that foster a healthy work environment and contribute to the development of a healthy workforce. It is intended to support you in fostering a healthier work environment while hosting meetings, conferences, or events. As an employer, you have a significant impact on your employees' wellness, and nearly half of most people's waking hours are spent at work. As part of this guide, there are 4 main principles. These principles are move more, food for fuel, be green, and plan well.
So as Lindsay mentioned, studies show that there's a strong relationship between the work environment and health behaviors of employees. Nearly half of most people's waking hours are spent at work. For many, this can mean hours spent in meetings, teleconferences, workshops, or events. Meetings generally involve a lot of time sitting with little chance for movement, all of which negatively impacts employee health. With the high rates of obesity, overweight, and preventable chronic diseases, workplaces can use resources like the Meet Well Guide to help create supportive working environments and develop a healthy workforce. So just to put this into perspective a bit and give you some context, here are some interesting findings from a recent Conference Board of Canada report where employers reported physical inactivity as a top contributor to workforce issues, second only to stress. And I will touch on that relationship a bit later as well. So what is physical activity? And what do we mean by moving more? To put it simply, as defined by the World Health Organization, physical activity is any bodily movement produced by the skeletal muscles that uses energy. More simply, activity would require energy, increased heart rate, and speed rate of breathing. This can involve structured activities such as sports, or exercise, or activities of daily living. So how much physical activity does the average adult need? And this is these guidelines are meant for across the day, not specifically just the work hours. But the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines for adults state that we need 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week in bouts of 10 minutes or more. And obviously the more physical activity provides greater health benefits. So how active are we? And this is an interesting finding here, if you could take a guess. Between the 3 options, research has suggested that only 15% of adults are meeting the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines. That's directly measured with accelerometers. However, 52% of people self-report they're active enough. So this demonstrates the disconnect between our perceived amount of physical activity that we're getting and the actual amount that we're getting. Often we overestimate how active we are. Sedentary behavior. To put it simply as well, in terms of a definition, sedentary behavior essentially means time spent at rest, not including sleep. Most often, it is in a sitting position. It is important to note that sedentary behavior carries an independent health risk regardless of how active you are. So for example, even if you're active for a half hour each day, let's say you go for a brisk walk or a jog or maybe participate in an exercise or fitness program, but you spend the other 12 hours of the day sitting or being sedentary at work, in your car, or on the couch at home, you still carry an increased health risk, thus making it very important that employees try to move constantly throughout the day at regular intervals. So again, to give you a bit of background into how sedentary are we as a population? And again, you'll notice of the three choices there, research has found that 69% of Canadian adults, 69% of the day, of any adult's day, is spent being sedentary, which translates into about 9.5 hours. So now let's make a sedentary time comparison, and we'll use a taxi driver, for example. This graph shows the average percentage of time in a typical work day that a taxi driver would spend being moderately active, which is demonstrated in green, doing light physical activities, highlighted in yellow, and being sedentary, highlighted in red. Now what is scary is when we compare that to the sedentary time of a recent stroke patient who is admitted to hospital, their days are almost indistinguishable. This is scary again, as we often think that we are more active than we are. Although the taxi driver has a highly sedentary job by nature, it isn't that far off from other occupations that require sitting at a desk all day, or even heavy equipment operators or truck drivers that spend several hours of their day sitting in a vehicle with limited opportunities for movement. For comparison as well, the typical office worker is found to spend at least 80% of their day being sedentary. Now, there are numerous mental health benefits to getting employees more active. Research shows that it helps to reduce depression and anxiety, increase focus and attention, improve memory and thinking, increase mood and energy levels, and it actually improves sleep and sleep time as well. In terms of dealing with stress, how can physical activity actually help us cope with stress and improve self-regulation? Now this diagram helps to illustrate that. Everyone has a threshold in terms of the stress and anxiety that they're dealing with on a daily basis. Once that threshold has reached its maximum, the limbic system takes over, which basically everyone's probably heard of the fight or flight response. This translates into more impulse behaviors. And what happens in the brain is that area of the brain responsible for executive function actually shuts down when we reach that stress threshold. What physical activity does is helps release neurotransmitters, which turn on the part of the brain responsible for executive function that allow for better attention, impulse control, and working memory. This restores the energy balance in the brain and allows for self-regulation. Aside from the numerous individual benefits, there are also several organizational benefits. Reduced absenteeism, both casual and long-term disability leaves. 50% improvements in presenteeism have been found. Increased productivity, job performance, and creativity. Reduced work-related injuries, reduced turnover, and in several other intangible benefits such as improved corporate reputation, improved relationships between management and staff, and increased employee satisfaction and loyalty are just some of the many that can be realized by having an active workforce. So in terms of creating a work culture in which we move more, especially for the purpose of this presentation around meeting well, focusing on reducing and interrupting sedentary time is an approach that is very practical and is much easier to do for both time, effort, and a scheduling perspective. Most often you can take your typical work routine and just ask the question, is sitting required? If you have a smaller group, say 2 to 3 people meeting to brainstorm a project or solution to an issue, a walking meeting can be a great alternative. If you're meeting over the phone by teleconference, using a headset or speakerphone will allow employees to stand up during conversation, move around a bit, pace back and forth, and all this incidental movements help to increase physical activity throughout the day. Same with in-person meetings. There are chairs in every boardroom, but it doesn't necessarily mean we need to use them. Holding standing meetings or inviting participants at the beginning of your meetings to stand or sit whenever they wish. Sometimes they may just stand for a few minutes and then sit again. And every little bit of this activity is beneficial. It will also help to keep their minds activated and engaged. Having centralized office equipment, not really necessarily meeting related, but it's something that's often overlooked. By placing printers, faxes, copiers at a centralized location, this encourages walking and more of that incidental movement throughout the day. It may only translate into a few hundred more steps, but it all adds up. A general rule of thumb as well is to break up sedentary behavior by getting up every 30 minutes to take a 2-minute activity break. If you're longer than 60 minutes, say you have a half hour or a half day meeting, standing up every hour for 4 or 5 minutes just to move around, get a stretch break. Again, every little bit of activity counts. Creating an active culture. First and foremost, it's very important that we raise awareness and education for employees around what are the physical activity guidelines and how important it is for them to reduce sedentary behavior. Walking is the easiest way to incorporate physical activity and the best option, especially for encouraging individuals who are usually very inactive. Organizing fitness or activity breaks, especially around longer meetings or events that run a half or full day, are also beneficial. Consider the indoor and outdoor environment and take advantage of the opportunities that are provided. If you're spending a half day in a meeting and there's a nice trail or walking path close to the building, take advantage of it and get outside during one of your breaks to go for a walk. If you have limited space in a small meeting room or a crunch for time, simply encouraging everyone to get up and stretch, go to the water fountain, or even go to the washroom, even if they don't necessarily need to, just walking there and back interrupts sedentary time, makes their day more active as a whole.
Now, moving on to food for fuel. We know that less than 1% of Canadian adults follow healthy eating recommendations. We also know that employees eat at least one meal at work, and that healthy eating can prevent or reduce costs related to illness or disability in the workplace. Although there are many contributing factors, our food environment, where we live, work, and play, has a key influence on our eating habits. What we eat and drink affects how well we feel and how healthy we are. We know from research that promoting healthy eating can prevent various workplace-related costs, such as absenteeism, reduced productivity, increased insurance premiums, medical costs, prescription drugs, as well as higher rates of injury, disability, and early retirement. We are surrounded by food every day, and what is made available has a great influence on what we choose to eat. Providing a work environment that supports health creates a culture that makes healthy eating the easy and natural choice. Typically, our approach for the last few decades has been educating individuals about healthy eating in order to encourage them to make the healthier choices themselves. The reality is that doesn't work. There are many assumptions that go into that. So it assumes that eating behaviors occur as a result of rational and thoughtful choices. It also assumes that each individual has the capacity to resist tempting foods in order to make healthy choices over time. The problem with that is that there are many other factors that all play a role and have an influence on our eating behaviors. Unfortunately, these occur below our conscious awareness, so individuals are not aware of the external influences on their personal behaviors. The first problem relates to physiological factors. There are some foods that appear to have the ability to stimulate the reward system in the brain, creating an addictive mechanism that helps to explain why people fail to make consistent healthy food choices. Unlike many other addictive substances, these ones are heavily advertised, inexpensive, widely available, and difficult to avoid. Willpower is another one of the issues that comes up. And it's one that people always assume should be present. Willpower is the ability to resist. Unfortunately, it's a limited resource that is found in the same part of the brain that controls functioning such as planning, learning, and processing stress. We know that people are not equipped to do with more than one task at a time that requires this mental energy. For example, if you're driving, your driving is going to be impaired while texting on a cell phone. When people use this part of the brain to do their job, such as problem solving or dealing with high amounts of stress, it means that there's less resistance to the tempting food. This helps to explain why when people are stressed, they tend to eat more and make unhealthy choices. It is also believed that the brain relies on blood glucose as its energy source. So when glucose levels are low, is when people are more likely to make decisions about their food choices. So for example, grocery shopping when you're hungry, or making a healthy choice in that afternoon slump when you're hungry and stressed and making that choice for the chocolate bar or bag of chips. Physical activity often is seen as a good compensation option to make up for poor dietary choices. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily work. It doesn't make up for the nutrients that would be missing on many of the less healthy foods, and if it was really the case, then losing weight would be a lot easier than what it is. It's not as simple as energy in equals energy out. Physical activity is, however, important for a wide variety of reasons already mentioned. Influences on food choices. There are a number of individual factors and external factors that influence what people choose to eat. For individual factors, people need to find healthy food that tastes good to them. We all have food preferences. They need the knowledge and skills to help them choose and prepare healthy foods. Impacts of stress, mental health, fatigue, hunger, and time pressures can make people more vulnerable to making less healthy choices. One of the external factors that has the biggest influence on our food choice is the availability of food. Often, food is present when it's not required. This can increase the likelihood that people will eat, especially if those foods are not healthy. The nutritional quality of food that is available influences individuals' diet quality. It is less likely that employees will make healthy choices in the workplace if the following conditions exist. If healthy food is not available, if healthy options do not taste good, if healthy food is more expensive, and if healthy food requires more effort to obtain. Lastly, eating with others or being encouraged by others to eat can influence the type or amount of foods that individuals eat. Both individual and external factors need to be addressed to make it easy for people to follow a healthy eating pattern in the workplace. One of the biggest questions is food or beverage really necessary? So as part of the MeatWell guide, there is a food and beverage checklist. And under that checklist are some tips to help you remember when you're making those options or making those choices for meetings or events. Remember to provide alternatives for individuals with food allergies or special dietary needs. When planning your event or your meeting, send out an email or ask people to let you know whatever special dietary needs that they may have so that you can incorporate that into the meeting that you're planning or the meal that you're planning. If you're providing a full meal, make sure that you're including 3 out of the 4 food groups. And if you're providing a snack, aim for 2 out of the 4 food groups. Always aim to make sure that at least one of those food groups for both a meal or a snack include a fruit or a vegetable. One of the biggest tips is to leave candy at home. Instead of leaving the candy in a little jar on the table where people can snack away at it, leave it away, and that way it's out of sight, out of mind, and people are less likely to want to use it or eat it. When you're making choices for your menu, make sure that you're emphasizing a fruit or veg at every snack or meal. Look for whole grains when you're looking at your breads, pastas, or muffins. Make sure to include protein-rich foods such as low-fat milk, yogurt, or cheese, lean meats, fish, eggs, beans, and legumes. When you're looking at serving sizes, make sure you're looking at ones that are appropriate and not too big. And always make sure that you practice safe food handling by making sure that your temperatures are remaining at a safe level and that food is not being left out for more than 2 hours. Always make sure that when you're looking at your different beverage food options, keep a few things in mind. So if you're looking at beverages, tap water should always be the #1 beverage offered. Consider investing in water jugs to make it easier rather than having bottles of water on hand. If you're worried that water will be boring, consider adding frozen fruit or slices of lemon or lime for flavoring, or have those on the side so people can add them as interested. If you're looking for other recipe options, contact the health unit as we have lots of options available. If you're offering fruit juice at breakfast, always make sure you're choosing 100% fruit or vegetable juice, not something that's listed as a beverage, punch, cocktail, or drink, as these contain lots of added sugar. For coffee and tea, offer milk and lower fat cream options, so 5% cream instead of the regular 18. For breakfast options, offer whole grain breads or bagels and limit the muffins to lower fat varieties if needed at all. Provide fruit, which can be served whole if it's easier, or cut up as well. And offer meat alternatives such as eggs and peanut butter instead of cream cheese for breads and bagels. When serving soups or sandwiches, especially at lunchtime, make sure you choose sandwich fillings that will support health and a variety of dietary needs. Options such as real meat fillings, such as turkey, ham, roast beef, or chicken, and offer alternative options such as hummus, grilled veggies, and lentil or tofu-based choices. Always offer condiments on the side, and opt for broth-based soups whenever possible instead of cream-based, and consider offering soups such as bean or lentil to ensure that everyone has an option available. If you're looking at main dishes, always try to include one vegetarian option that includes a source of protein. Ensure that lentils, beans, or tofu are included to make sure that protein is available at all meals. If you plan to offer dessert, consider providing a dessert such as fresh fruit, or at the very least a fruit-based dessert such as a crumble, and offer smaller serving sizes. When you're looking at offering meals, always consider the time of day. So is it mid-morning or mid-afternoon? And does it extend through a mealtime? If the answer to either of those is no, and you're not going through a mealtime, consider just offering water as an adequate amount of nourishment for staff. If the answer is yes, that your meal or your snack is going over your meeting is going over a 2-hour time period, or you're going through a mealtime, then food and beverage may be required, and you may want to have a majority of the food offerings that meet that healthy food and beverage checklist. So as an example, if you're planning a breakfast, oftentimes people tend to serve eggs, sausage, toast, hash browns, things that are deep fried and less healthy for you. Another option could be something that would meet these guidelines. So for example, you could serve yogurt parfaits. Those would be low-fat Greek yogurt, fresh fruit that can be locally sourced when in season, and low-fat granola. People can make those up with whatever combination they would like. You can also serve fresh fruit. Again, it could be cut up or even whole fruit. That way people can snack on it throughout the course of the meeting. Whole grain bagels served with peanut butter rather than cream cheese. And coffee, both regular and decaf, served with milk and 5% cream rather than the typical 18%, as well as sugar and sweeteners. Tea with regular and decaf varieties, and water with lemon, lime, or other fruits, either in or on the side. If you need support with planning menus or are looking for additional suggestions, the dietitians at the health unit can help. Feel free to connect with us for any ideas, suggestions, or even to review a menu if you're looking for some more information or some more ideas. The next principle is to be green. Being environmentally friendly is important not just for your workplaces, but for the community. Environmentally friendly meetings can save you money and the environment. Choosing locally sourced foods helps reduce fossil emissions long term. Here are some tips to help you go green. Only consider printing if necessary. Ensure that it is double-sided. Or you can consider using a flash drive or USB, or make the presentation or resources available online so people can use their computer and review it that way. Encourage people to bring their own mugs or water bottles. Provide beverages and food in bulk containers rather than single-serving utensils. Examples are salt and pepper, condiments such as salad dressing, or ketchup. Ensure that there are recycling containers for paper, plastic, and cans, and choose reusable plates, glasses, and containers whenever possible. Using municipal water and water jugs also allows for options such as flavored water to be offered, which can increase water intake and reduce sugar consumption. Only order the amount of food that you actually need. Know how many people are going to be coming, and expect often that there will be more food ordered than will be required. Food wastage is a big challenge in many communities, so take that into account when planning your meetings. If the room has enough sunlight to keep the room adequately lit, consider turning off overhead lights whenever possible.
So to continue on with what Lindsay has expressed, the next component around plan well is really key. Some things to consider when planning a meeting is just to ask the question, do we need to meet or can the outcome be accomplished in a different way? Also, you should review the length of the meeting and format of the agenda. Is sitting required? Are food and beverage needed? As we just discussed. Are you giving gifts to presenters or incentives to your participants? Other things to consider as well, have you set your expectations for the meeting? Will the event be outdoors? Can you support local businesses and buy local food? And are you missing anything else that you should consider?
As part of the Meetwell Guide, we've created the Meetwell Charter. This allows organizations and businesses that want to promote the Meetwell philosophy through words and actions to adopt or adapt the Meetwell Charter to help support a healthy workforce. If you're interested in more information on this, feel free to contact us at workplacehealth@chathamkent.ca or at 519-352-7270.
Thank you very much, Lindsay and Chris, for this informative information and presentation. And again, if you do want to contact us, as Lindsay said, workplacehealth@chathamkent.ca and 519-352-7270. Thank you.